It's not just the Democrats that are panicking about the surge of Bernie Sanders. It's also the never-Trumper Republicans. There are groups of Republicans who are actively campaigning to get Republican senators to vote to remove Donald Trump. And now they're faced with the very real and very worse possibility of a Bernie Sanders presidency. You see, as much as these never-Trumpers don't like Trump because of his character, they still like some of the ideas he has. They just think he's making conservatism look bad. But Bernie Sanders is an avowed socialist, and they're drawing the line. They're hoping that Joe Biden will win, but let's be real, Joe Biden is spiraling out of control. So maybe they'll be happy to accept Joe Biden winning the nomination if Trump still wins, I guess. But these are Republicans who want Trump out. They actively want him to be removed by the Senate. Joe Biden's not going to win. And in my opinion, I got to be honest with all of you, I really don't think Joe Biden's actually running. I'm going to show you why. I think I've got more than enough evidence to show Joe Biden isn't actually trying to win for whatever reason. Now, Bernie Sanders is. He's raising about double what Joe Biden is raising. And now the never-Trumpers are realizing maybe Trump might be bad, but Bernie Sanders bad? Oof. If you guys have seen those Project Veritas releases over the past few weeks, you know that Bernie Sanders is attracting extremists into his campaign and not disavowing them. And some of these people are talking about their real plans, that this is their last chance to try and do it the right way. So we've got multiple things happening. The other day in Wildwood, New Jersey, according to Trump officials, 175,000 people tried getting into this event. Let me be honest with all of you. I applied for press the moment they announced. They turned me down. It's never happened to me before. I've gone to tons of Trump rallies. And they said, sorry, we're just too full. And I can respect they don't want, to a certain degree, national level commentators when they try to make room for the local, news outlets. But you had people lining up outside this event 2 days in advance. Think about this. Joe Biden can't remember where he is. Never-Trumpers try to remove Trump, but he is surging. His approval rating just hit an all-time high, save for just after he got elected. It's the highest it's been in the past 3 years. Joe Biden is floundering. Bernie Sanders is rising, and both the never-Trumpers and the Democrats are in full panic mode. I got to say, this whole thing is it's kind of humorous. If you're not somebody who takes everything ridiculously seriously, and you don't think the world is ending, you're probably laughing and having a good time right now. So let's do this. Let's read the story and see what the never-Trumpers are saying. Because I did do a segment about how about the Democrats freaking out because Bernie was going to win. I will tell you this, though. To the establishment Democrats and the never-Trumpers, it's not going to be Biden, and it's not going to be Bernie. It's going to be Trump. And you want to know why? Because the Bernie camp will not vote Biden, and the Biden camp will not vote Bernie. And this is the other side of that coin. The moderate Democrats don't want to vote for the progressives. The progressives don't want to vote for the moderates. And the tiny fraction of never-Trumpers definitely don't want to vote for the socialists. So they can't even unite behind anybody. How will any Democrat win if they won't support each other? Sorry, Trump's got ridiculously high approval rating among the Republican Party. So let's get started with the Washington Examiner. But before we do, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There are several ways you can give. I got a new address, but the best thing you can do is just share this video. YouTube's algorithm has been putting the boot on a lot of us political commentators. And aside from that, let's break some echo chambers by sharing this video. Maybe some people will hear something they didn't hear before. Maybe they'll hate my guts and never want to watch again, but it really does help my channel grow when you do share. Let's read the story from the Washington Examiner. They say, it's asking a lot. Never-Trump Republicans draw the line at Bernie Sanders. The rise of socialist Bernie Sanders is frustrating never-Trump Republicans who are hoping the Democratic Party nominates a consensus center-left presidential candidate they are comfortable supporting in November. If Sanders is the Democratic nominee, many will sit out the election and be deprived of the opportunity of voting against President Trump, they said. Sanders is surging days before the Iowa caucuses and a couple of weeks before the New Hampshire primary, leaving Republican operatives avowedly opposed to Trump worried and perplexed. Most are convinced swing voters in key battlegrounds would reject Sanders, paving the way for Trump's reelection. They are also convinced the Vermont Senator 78 is simply too liberal to earn their vote. With a Sanders nomination, never-Trump Republicans are unsure of what comes next. Let me stop right there. Bernie Sanders is not liberal. He is a leftist. I really hate when conservatives do this. Come on, DC Examiner, you guys know better. Bernie Sanders is too leftist. Never Trumpers would support a liberal. Joe Biden is your moderate corporate type, but at least they're like, well, he falls in the more liberal camp, meaning he's not an avowed socialist. There's a big difference. And I would like to make that distinction. They said, I don't know where the anti-Trump movement goes from here, said Jennifer Horn, a never Trump Republican and former New Hampshire GOP chairwoman who is affiliated with the Lincoln Project, a group of anti-Trump Republicans who have pressured GOP senators to support impeachment. It's a really tough question, added political strategist Sarah Longwell, a never Trump Republican at the center of an unsuccessful effort to recruit a formidable candidate to challenge the president in the 2020 GOP primary. That's never going to happen. Trump's approval rating is 90% or whatever among Republicans. Anti-Trump Republicans are holding out hope for 77-year-old Joe Biden. Now, that just breaks my heart. Y'all are this is ridiculous. It's not going to happen. I understand Trump is old himself, but what are your options? Joe Biden, who can barely speak, doesn't know where he is, who actually said recently, check this out. Joe Biden, talking to a crowd, said if he chose a VP, they'd have to be capable because, well, let's be honest, I'm old. He then goes on to say, I do work out. The insinuation was clear. Joe Biden is not entirely convinced he could fill a full term, a single term. Now, hold on. There was a rumor going around that Joe Biden might actually only run for one term just to get rid of Trump. But Trump could run if, you can do two terms, like you could skip a term. So it made no sense. Well, Joe Biden rejected that. But now he's basically saying he needs a capable VP, essentially because he's old and may die in office. And if he's saying that, it's talking about finishing a first term. He's 77. But I'm going to have to be real for all of y'all. I understand the concern among these never Trumpers is that Bernie might win and they will lose. But Bernie can't win either. Just face the facts. You're getting technically 5 more years of Trump. All right? Bernie Sanders is a 78-year-old socialist who just had a heart attack. I'm not trying to be mean to the guy. I respect him for a lot of the work he's done. That's fine. But let's be real. He's old. He's weak. He's mentally weak. I don't think he's going to win. So y'all never Trumpers can calm down. Well, insofar as it goes with Bernie Sanders, but let's be real. As much as you don't like Trump, all signs indicate Trump's getting reelected, especially when you look at Wildwood. Let's read a little bit more. They say, the former vice president is a Democrat they can embrace, they said. Liberal, but not too far left. And moderate in tone. Biden consistently polls well against Trump and leads the Democratic field nationally. He now trails a climbing Sanders in the February 3rd Iowa caucuses and the February 11th New Hampshire primary. But he leads in the other critical early states and is better positioned to win the party's crown than other contenders that they could stomach, such as Pete Buttigieg, Klobuchar, or Mike Bloomberg. If Biden wins the nomination, many never Trump Republicans are prepared to work on his behalf to attract disaffected voters on the right, just like them. But never Trump Republicans have limits. Philosophically conservative and not wanting to be perceived as otherwise, they view Sanders' self-professed democratic socialism as equally problematic and might skip 2020 altogether if he leads the Democratic ticket. It's asking a lot from people on the center right or in the old Reagan wing of the GOP to go full Sanders in November, said Jerry Taylor, who runs the Niskanen Center, a Washington think tank that has become a hub for the never Trump community. Taylor does plan to support Sanders in the general election if the senator wins the Democratic nod, but described himself and others like him as the exception to the rule. I would not feel particularly happy about it, but I would swallow hard and pull the lever. Should Sanders emerge, never Trump Republicans say they and independent conservatives itching to oust Trump in the fall are likely to sit on their hands or vote for a hopeless third-party candidate in protest. That is what Longwell concluded after 2 years and several focus groups with persuadable voters in the Rust Belt as part of her extensive research into the best strategy for holding Trump to a single term. Longwell conceded Sanders would juice the liberal base, but she said his plans for expansive government and European-style foreign policy would scare away the voters he needs in the Midwest to produce an electoral college majority. This includes the soft Republicans, suburban swing voters, and college-educated women who often vote GOP. Yeah, we get it. Here's one. Bernie Sanders will get beaten by Donald Trump, Longwell said. He's a non-starter for swing voters. Well, they got their fingers crossed for Joe Biden, but let me tell you the sad truth. Bernie voters are necessary to win Biden. You need the progressive wing to get over that, to get the amount of electoral votes you need. They're not going to support Biden. And Joe Biden doesn't even support Biden. I'm not exaggerating. I don't think Joe Biden's actually running. So all these never-Trumpers are spinning their wheels for no reason, and I find it absolutely hilarious. Listen, as I always say, you don't have to like the guy, but come back to reality, please. Have you followed the news on Joe Biden? Do you really think he could beat Trump? You are nuts. I get it. I can't fault you for trying if you really do not like the guy. But let's take a look at what Joe Biden has done recently. Here's a story from the Free Beacon from just the other day. Biden to Iowa voter. Go vote for someone else. What? Why would Joe Biden tell a voter asking him a question not to vote for him? Maybe it's because Joe Biden isn't really running. I swear, I am convinced that he's running to sell books or something. People do it. A lot of people announce they're going to run for president to try and build a national profile. I don't know if Joe Biden necessarily needs that. Maybe he's hoping he doesn't have to do the work and he can win anyway on name recognition alone, or by, essentially pretending to be Obama-esque. But he literally told the voter, go vote for someone else. And the guy was like, whoa, but I said I would support you in the general. And he says, yeah, but I want a primary vote. So, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you say, what can I do to earn that vote from you? Instead, Biden's just like, somebody else. But I'll tell you the funny part. I'm not just coming to this idea right now that Biden's not really running. I've been thinking about this for a while. Check this out. Joe Biden told a voter, let me read this for you, at a town hall event Thursday in Greenwood, South Carolina, an immigrant rights activist named Carlos Rojas asked Joe Biden about deportations. The exchange came shortly after a woman named Sylvia Moreno, speaking in Spanish and using Rojas as a translator, told the former vice president she lived in constant fear that ICE would arrest and forcibly expel members of her family. Biden listened as Moreno and Rojas rattled off the deportation numbers that marked the Obama presidency. More than 3 million people. A greater number than any other administration in history, including Trump's. Rojas asked the aspiring president if he'd halt removals, but Biden refused, saying he'd prioritize deporting people who committed felonies or serious crimes. Rojas objected, and Biden said, quote, you should vote for Trump. Then he turned his back on the activist and walked away. Well, I can say this. I respect Biden for refusing to bend the knee to the woke left, the open borders left. But why would you ever tell someone, go vote for Trump? If the never-Trumpers are really holding out, crossing their fingers, it's going to be Joe Biden, and Joe Biden himself is telling people not to vote for him. I know he's not literally trying to say, don't vote for me, but he is still saying, don't vote for me. I got to be honest. I don't think Joe Biden could beat Trump. I think Bernie Sanders is going to generate way more enthusiasm, and I think you'd be more likely to find some moderate Democrats willing to bite the bullet and pull the lever for Sanders. However, it's not going to get the never-Trumpers. The coalition just doesn't exist for any of these candidates to actually make it. Let's move on, though. I got some more funny news. Look at this. New York Times writes, does Joe Biden want to be doing this? On certain days, Biden 2020 can feel more like a dutiful slog than the last march of a happy warrior. Yes, Joe Biden's not really running, never-Trumpers. You got to stop pretending. Trump's going to be your president again. What's funny is when Trump got elected, I laughed. I'm not going to get all bent out of shape about it. What are we going to do? We're going to wake up every day angry that the guy we didn't want won? Nah, man. Been there, done that. Guess what? You don't win them all. So calm down, but come back to reality, please. Joe Biden clearly doesn't want to be doing this. Look at this story. Iowa is coming up soon, okay? It's like, a week away? Not even a week away. It's like 5 days, 6 days. Here's the New York Times again. Biden is struggling in Iowa, and his supporters there know why. The former vice president's backers have noted a lack of enthusiasm and a spotty campaign operation as reasons Joe Biden is lagging in Iowa. Not to mention a formidable moderate competitor in Pete Buttigieg. No, but let's be real. I talked about this a while ago because news came out that Joe Biden's Iowa director, like the main guy, hadn't even been to the state in like almost a decade or some ridiculous number. Joe Biden doesn't seem to actually be trying to win. I really, really do mean this. Joe Biden says he raised $22.7 million in the fourth quarter. Mr. Biden's, while far short of the haul that Senator Bernie Sanders announced earlier Thursday, was an improvement from the previous quarter. Whether or not Joe Biden's actually going to run, I'm not going to rain on the Never Trumper parade a little bit more. I think Bernie Sanders is going to get the nomination. I think he's charging forward. The Democrats thought they were going to have this hands-off approach and let Bernie do his thing, and hopefully he'd burn out. He's only gained steam. It's like what the Republicans saw with Trump. He just gained more and more steam. And, early on, people didn't think Trump was going to be the nominee. Everyone doubted it, even in some of the early primaries. But then he ended up winning. We can see right now, Bernie Sanders, check this out. They say he raised $15.7 million during the third quarter. And they mentioned this. Mr. Biden's fourth quarter total was much smaller than that of Bernie Sanders, whose campaign announced earlier it had raised more than $34.5 million in the quarter. Biden, who raised, the former vice president, also lagged behind Buttigieg, whose campaign revealed 24.7. So what, 60 or so percent, 66% of what Bernie Sanders raised. Now, in the polls, they say Joe Biden is the front runner. But I got more bad news for the Never Trumpers. It's going to be Bernie Sanders. And now you're going to be stuck between a rock and a hard place. You don't like Donald Trump for his attitude. You think it gives conservatism a bad name. You can choose the socialist. Welcome to America. Hey, this is why people love the two-party system, right? We can see here. Check this out. In the aggregate, over the past week or so, Bernie Sanders has been skyrocketing. Seriously. Warren is basically out. Biden took a dip recently. And Bernie Sanders is closing in with less than 5 points separating him from Joe Biden. And I do think it's fair to point out that Joe Biden's popularity is based on Obama. And the more people see what he's doing and see what he has to say, the less likely there is anything there to actually vote for. Let me just tell you this. The guy often doesn't know where he is. Okay, he mutters and stumbles. He tells other people, go vote for somebody else. And the worst thing he does is he inappropriately touches women and girls. I'm just going to straight up say it, right? But there is more we can still hit at because, well, let me read this a little bit about prominent Never Trumpers. They say this. This is from the emerging Anybody But Warren campaign. I got more bad news for the Never Trumpers because they also would reject Elizabeth Warren. So guess what? It's going to be Bernie Sanders. You don't got to worry about Warren. I guess that's technically good news, but they're rejecting everybody. The Never Trumpers seem to be in this fringe reality where I don't know who they think they're going to convince when 90% of the Republican Party supports the president. But they even had a campaign to say, never Warren. Okay, well, now you got to contend with never Bernie. But guess what? Joe Biden is the best the Democrats have to offer, and he's not even really trying. But it's also the Democrats. This is from the National Review. The sudden Democratic panic about Bernie Sanders. They say 1 week before the Iowa caucuses, with Bernie Sanders leading most polls in the state and in New Hampshire, the rest of the Democratic Party is suddenly realizing that the Vermont senator could well win the nomination. At NBC News, Politico, and ABC News, the big story this morning is that the Democratic establishment has been caught asleep at the wheel for a second straight cycle. I know not everyone in the National Review audience has such a warm and fuzzy perspective about our old friend and colleague David Frum, but Frum is a guy who at least spent some time in the conservative movement and GOP politics, and periodically he reminds the mostly left-of-center audience of The Atlantic of how the world actually works. And when he does, it can turn out to be hilarious. It's like watching a parent try to explain to kids that the coins in their piggy bank cannot, in fact, cover the cost of the trip to Disney World. He says, Bernie Sanders is a fragile candidate. He has never fought a race in which he had to face serious personal scrutiny. None of his Democratic rivals is subjecting him to such scrutiny in 2020. Hillary Clinton refrained from scrutinizing Sanders in 2016. It did not happen either in his many races in Vermont. A Politico profile in 2015 by Michael Cruz argued that Sanders had benefited from an unwritten compact between Sanders, his supporters, and local reporters who have steered clear of writing about Sanders' personal history, rather than risk lectures about the twisted priorities of the press. I'm going to stop here because I think you get the point on Bernie Sanders. Let me try and wrap this together. I apologize if it feels a little fractured, but the general idea is Never Trumpers and establishment Democrats are the old guard, and they're very similar. The Never Trumpers want this ideal version of this, pristine suit-wearing Republican who speaks perfectly and clearly and is Ivy League educated. Instead, they get Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump Ivy League educated? I don't know. Whatever. They get Trump who's crude and crass, and they say he makes us look bad. The Democratic establishment says Bernie Sanders is too far left and he's subverting our party. They're all losing. The populists are winning. In the end, the Democratic establishment and the Never Trumpers are going to lose out because try as they might, both factions, old school conservative and liberal, they can't stop Bernie Sanders. Biden is all they have, and he's not even trying. Bernie's going to take over, and he's going to lose. He's going to lose bad. Because here's where it gets really, really funny. President Trump holds Keep America Great rally at Jersey Shore in a blue state, New Jersey, next to Philadelphia, a very blue area. Donald Trump says, according to his campaign, Trump officials said more than 175,000 tickets were requested for the event, which daughter-in-law Laura Trump said in a radio interview is a record for any President Trump rally anywhere. Now, what's really funny about this is the Bernie people trying to pretend like it's not real, saying, but the event could only hold 7,000, therefore Trump's numbers must be wrong. No, I think it's legit. I think Trump is seeing his best approval rating essentially ever. You know, right after he got inaugurated, his approval rating was high, but now it's higher than it's been in the past 3 years. Impeachment is failing. Nobody cares. The ratings are down. Biden doesn't seem to be actually trying. Bernie is going to lose. The factions that are resisting Trump are failing miserably. And there is no single unified Democratic Party, and they know it. This is once again just another story about why Donald Trump is going to win re-election. No, I'll tell you what. Hubris will be your downfall. And I often say that to the Trump supporters. If you think you can sit back and win, you got another thing coming. Because we can look at all these things, and I can say this, but I'll tell you what. If you just think you got it in the bag because the Democrats can't form a coalition, you'll lose 100%. So never underestimate your opponent. I can point these things out because I feel like all signs currently point to a Trump landslide election. I really, really do. The economy is fantastic, and people know it. Not everybody feels it, but enough do. And when you look at the weakness of the candidates and the panic in the eyes of those resisting Trump, you can see it's Trump, baby. He's going to win. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. YouTube.com/TimCastNews, and I will see you all there.